Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. And tonight is your legend segment. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Black History Month. And I got a legend, I got a historian, my friend from the great Delray Beach, Mr. Leonard Bernard Mitchell. Bernard, welcome to the show, brother.
Welcome. We're glad to be here, Bobby. And like we said, we got 100 yards of football. We're going to trace some lineage of our historical aspects, and we're going to have a fun time for this 1 hour.
Well, it was a great time.
Put your seatbelts on because it's going to be something.
Well, it's a great time to have you on because this is Black History Month, and we want to pay homage, right? Our history and our tradition in Delray Beach is huge, it's large, but truly, let's just be honest. It's South Florida, right? We just happen to live in Palm Beach County, because if you go south to Broward, if you go to Dade, it's all in the water down there. You go out west of Palm Beach County, you're in the muck.
Yes, it is.
Belgrade, Pahokee. And so we play ball down there, and it's a good place, especially for kids. If you want to play the culture of especially football and baseball, let's just say both of those sports, football and baseball, we got strong history.
Yep.
But before we get into it, we're going to start with you, Mr. Bernard Mitchell. Now, Bernard, a lot of people don't know. See, I happen to know. I sit right there before and after. I sit in the middle of a lot of great things, right? So as a kid, I had the opportunity to experience the great Carver High. And what can we say? I mean, just put it this way, that history that's living in me from Delray and from Carver High will never die. And that's part of what I want to do in this show. I want to make it live. I want to keep it going.
Okay.
But you were, and we all grew up in segregation in the very beginning of school. I was in the 6th grade when we integrated our schools, when we truly integrated all schools. And I remember as a kid dreaming to play football for Coach Roger Koff at Carver High School. And then in 1970, we got the news. It's not going to be any more Carver High School. All right? We're going to integrate. We're going to send half the kids in Delray to a new school in Delray, which was the old Seacrest High School, which even though a lot of people consider Seacrest a white school, it was integrated before integration. And we can talk about that too. Right? We can talk about that too.
It was the school of choice.
It was the school of choice. There you go. Because you had some family over there. Am I right? What did Freddie go?
Yes, I did. My sister.
Freddie was there. Freddie and your sister Sharon was there.
Freddie was my sister. My older sister Sharon, Sandra was there.
Sandra was there. Okay.
And then we also had, Arissa Taylor, Jackie Wilson, who was my cousin, Doug Davis. You had Richard. Well, you had Pistol McGrady, Richard Sims.
Yes, sir.
You had Johnny Carter. You had Dennis Matthews. You had Rock.
You had Rock.
You had Ernest Biggie Williams. You had Leon Jenkins. And you had an assortment of guys out of the Boynton Delray area who were already locked in. And then you had Ronald Mack, the late Semi Taylor, Horace Bush, Leroy Temple, who started as a sophomore at linebacker. You had Barry Dukes, who was a sophomore who was playing varsity football. So you had and then you had a couple of other guys out of Boynton who were playing. So, but all of those were a school of choice, and they were not ordered. That was before, so that was the dynamic. And then, of course, when the Supreme Court said we're going to fully desegregate, there was no more school of choice, so you didn't have that option. So they closed Carver. They closed JFK, where Ben McCoy was. They closed Roosevelt. They closed all of the predominantly black schools and merged them with, Seacrest and Carver became Roosevelt became, and Palm Beach High became Twin Lakes, and Suncoast, which was Riviera Beach High, and JFK became the Chargers. And so we all and they kept something synonymous. They either kept the name or the colors. And of course, JFK was the Vikings, so they compromised with the Chargers. And Twin Lakes kept the colors, a bit of the maroon in their uniforms. And, but then the head coaching positions, we lost, like Ben McCoy, Roger Coffey.
Right.
The late Floyd Andrews, the late Ben, and also the late Roger Coffey, because he's since passed on. But Roger was unique, Mr. Coffey, because he was my neighbor on the other street. I lived on 14th, he stayed on 13th. But he was also the first coach in Palm Beach County back-to-back state championships. Right. Andrews, who coached at Old Roosevelt, he had teams with Greg Lowry, Michael Lang, the pogo stick jumping center, winning state championships. And Michael Lang was 5 feet 11 inches tall. And then of course you had Otis Anderson's brother, we called him Smoke, who went to Roosevelt. Was probably one of the most legendary running backs to come out of Palm Beach County. And then you had all of this dynamic athletic talent and this composite. And then of course we did that dynamic, and they separated the schools, and they had an assortment go here and here, and then they tweaked the boundaries every so often. Because if you think about it, when I was first at Atlantic, my 11th grade year, we had Dwight Allen, we had David Wilfork, Greg Davis, and an assortment of guys out of the Boynton area. Well, they all later went to Lake Worth. And then we had a couple we lost that ended up at Boca because they broke the concentration of kids down, because a group of all those kids thought, and we didn't get that news till the end of almost ready for fall camp. And guys going to Lake Worth were at the brink of tears, because we had been working all spring. Right. And we had our roster defined. And you think about a guy like Dwight Allen, who was a favorite, and he didn't want to go to Lake Worth. You had Greg, you had David Wilfork, which is Vincent Wilfork's father. And if you ever saw David play, you knew exactly why Vince had such great feet, because his dad was a big guy who could run backs down from the backside. And then we struggled with that. And then of course there were the things that came about it, like Donald Hunt, Dick Josie, and all those guys were still at the Atlantic after they left Carver. And then putting a team together became the personalities having to mesh. The Coffee being, I call him, we had two RCs. We had Randy Cooper and Roger Coffee. Randy Cooper was the guy that lived on top of the hill by the school. Right. And we had RC1 and RC2. And it was always both of you guys up with the same initials.
While we're right here, let's break that down. Because when I got to Atlantic in 77, I graduated in 77. I got there in 73.
Yep.
Fall of 73, 74 graduation class.
73.
Yeah. I got there the fall of 73. And Coach Cooper was not coaching anymore when I got there. Right? He was still on campus.
He was running the community school.
Yeah, he was in administration. There you go. He was running community school. But I got to know him, man. Right. I love that guy. I love that man. And a lot of people don't know that the relationship that him and Coach Roger Coffey had, they were really good friends. They were really good friends.
They used to talk routinely. They would sit down and talk football, and the Coffey used to tell him, you got my boys. And when we played Palm Beach at my senior year, and he was screaming all the way across, the only reason you beat me, you got all my boys.
My boys.
Look at this. I mean, and they came to the field. You got my boys.
I love it.
You ain't running 2 plays, but you got my boys. and you know what he was talking about? 2 plays. He was running Stampede right and Stampede left.
So, that's right.
And after the game, it was or quick pitch at 9 on set. And we run the 528 or 522 counter. To throw you off, and every now and then we roll out and throw a pass. But
people don't know.
Yeah.
You know, when people run the so-called wing T today, they don't run it like we ran it.
Yep.
All right. It's more of an option-driven offense now, right? That offense was a beautiful offense. It was so beautiful. And then I found out what was really interesting to me. I don't know where I thought, I thought maybe that offense came from Coach Cooper. He brought it when he came in and started coaching. And then I said, well, maybe Coach Wilder brought that offense from Pahokee. And so I'm thinking it's got to be one of those two guys who brought the offense to Atlantic or the Seacrest. But I found out that it was Norman Price. Bought the offense from Arkansas. He talked about it. He was from Arkansas. He talked about it. I go, what? He said, man, I'm telling you, I brought that offense from Arkansas, right? It was just a great story. A man who I didn't know played football, basketball, and track
and ran track
at Arkansas. Yep. You know, so he was a heck of an athlete, and we had him as a coach. But anyway, I thought it was unique that he bought that offense, and then Coach Cooper was there, and so Coach Cooper would do this burnout with me. He'll come to the gym, want to play basketball. So I've been in the gym, and he'll want to play, and I'm looking at him, right? You know, of course he's way shorter than me, and you know I'm very athletic. I can jump, I can run, but he really wanted to play, and he'll be elbowing me, and so all right, man, all right, old man, I had enough, all right. But he loved to compete, and I really enjoyed that.
But he was a competitor.
He was a competitor, man. And then I found out my best friend Larry Coffey went up to West Virginia Westland, and in that conference they played in, Larry Coffey broke every rushing record in that conference. But guess who owned them before Larry broke them? Randy Cooper.
Randy Cooper.
In that same conference.
Yep.
So, you know, we got a great football. We got a great football history. We got a great football history. So,
and you know,
before we get on with it now, Bernard, I want to talk about you. When you were living, you lived right there on Southwest 14th Street, a block away.
Or half Southwest 14th Avenue.
I'm not going to say a whole block. A half a block away from Carver High.
From Carver High School. Yes, sir.
So tell me what that was like. Because, you know, it was so different. When you and I were in high school, nobody came to practice but the team. But at Carver, the whole community was at practice every day. Talk about it, man, real quick. Talk about that experience you had.
I would be in the, these guys would be on their way to morning practice. You would hear the cleats clicking down the sidewalk. You know, Abraham Wooten and all those guys were over. They would all meet somewhere. They'd be walking. And then next thing you know, you hear the bug coming behind them. Y'all know y'all almost late to my practice, right? On the whistle. So everybody knew they on their way to football practice. So and here's the dynamic. They would sing a song on their way to practice, you know, by Carver Spirit and the Eagles. And you would have a choir director because they sounded real well, because that was the trick they had. And then when they got into practice, you know, Phil Henson would be running around like he's trying to turn him into something unique. Nate Collins would be he was the line coach. The late Josh Smith was the defensive backfield coach, and wide receiver coach. Because then they only had like 4 coaches, and Bill Caesar would help him out, and Roger Coffey would be the offensive backfield coach, play caller. Well, he didn't. And when I say play caller, he put his team and his players in a position to make offensive changes that would make all his calls. No, there was no messenger system. And when you watch practice, you would look at him, and he would stop and say, well, why would you not change to this? And he would look at Anthony Penn. You know, when that man moves over in that gap, you should go switch. Going X right, you go X left.
Right. There you go.
You got more power on that side, or whatever the play was called. They would run these plays in succession. And Penn had full command of the offense to call a timeout, run the play. But then everybody would be sitting up in the stands, right? Looking. And so, and as he was building this team, he was also building community. And everybody, man, you're going to the game tonight. Oh, you're going to the game. And before you knew it, everybody, you knew who was going. And
right.
the atmosphere of football and would be, you couldn't find anywhere to park on the street, nor in the field. And and what was unique about it was the neighborhood showed up at every practice. But here was the fun thing about it. They were spirited practices. And at the end of practice, he'd bring the team in together. He'd talk about everything they did right and everything they did wrong. He'd say, well, we didn't get everything we need to get done, so we got to run a little extra because we're going to be in better shape than anybody we play. And they had grueling practices. And they had the 7-man sled, the 2-man sled, and they competed every day. The competition was stiff. But then because you had the late William Plummer. You had one of the original GOATs. You had Greg Thompson. You had Lester Flowers. You had Abraham Wooten. You had Freddie Grice. You had Lawrence Hunt. You had Donald Hunt. You had Joe Jack, who was the smallest son of the late Arliss Johnson, playing the guard. And then you had Charles Francis, who played tackle for 1 year, and had never played, but he played tackle. And then after that, that tackle, but that was the dynamics of Carver High School football. And then the following year, is what we know to be state championship won against Williston. Went to Williston, defeated them. Second year, they beat the Latchaway of Santa Fe over at Seacrest. Put the whoop on them, back to back, 2 in a row. First time ever in Palm Beach County. And so Roger Coffey committed himself in what we call football legend in Palm Beach County.
No doubt. Well, it was a special time for all of us, man. I know, for me, Anthony Penn can't do no wrong. And so, but, Penn was greater than his athletic ability. He was a great passer. One of the things, when I saw Penn do this against Roosevelt, 1 year, I was at a game, and Penn dropped back to pass. He couldn't even set his feet, Bernard, and the pass rush was on top of him. He made a spin one way, ran around and made a backspin, like he was going back 20, 30 yards, right? And then he turned up, and I go, oh, he's going to run. He was running back toward the line of scrimmage, and before he crossed the line, he threw one down there to Alfonso Wilson, bro. Listen, when I saw that play, I said, I want to be like that dude right there. Yep. I don't care about the running backs no more. I love Greg. I love Pop Grover. I love all of them. When I saw Penn do that right there, I said, hey, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to be like right there. And so, but not only was he a phenomenal player, Penn was a special leader. He was special. His leadership skills was beyond, that of someone who was 17, 18 years of age at that time. And then when you look back at the stats on Penn, which is, I'm always amazed at this. On him. He threw for over 4,600 yards as a starter at Carver High School. I want you to think about that.
Yes,
we're talking about in the 60s, man. When you ran the ball and you threw when you had to. But Carver was a different team. Carver was a different team because he had so many. Man, that man had so many.
Well, think about he got William Plummer out of the band. He told him, boy, you ain't got no business beating no drum. You gonna come out here and play wide out.
Exactly.
Billy was in the band.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And he turned him into one of the best big wide receivers in football in our high school era. Well, and then and then when you think about what he did, athletically, in Penn, using ability, his escapability, his arm, and his thinking, and his leadership. And when you think about that today, over 4,600 yards and those number of touchdowns. See, he and Fonzo had a special connection because they all grew up over there in that same area, and they would be over that field throwing every day.
Man,
and
listen,
that was the routine.
But
it was Roger didn't tell them to do that, but that's what they did.
That's what they did, right?
Lester,
exactly.
They were special.
Gopher, you know,
and so how do you define that?
I mean, that's true. I mean, but it was a special time.
That was their commitment to wanting to be.
Right.
It was.
Right. Well, Bernard, think about being able to see that for all of us, you know, to be sucked into the culture, right? Because that's what Delray had a culture. Because when you start thinking about the ball, the guys who play ball, man, it's like everybody played ball, man, right? And so it was a culture that
everybody played.
Everybody
wanted to play.
Everybody wanted to be a part of it, man. Everybody. And so I found out another thing when I found out, because since I've been doing this show, I used to always wonder, what did people do before we had the Delray Rocks? Right? That was always my question. Well, you know, Red Odom didn't have the Delray Rocks. I mean, he coached the Delray Rocks, but he never played for the Delray Rocks, you know?
No.
Bernard Mitchell never played for the Delray Rocks. I mean, you know, so how? I used to always say, and then I got Red Odom, I got Bill Caesar, and I got Nate Collins on one day, talking to them, and they was talking about, you know, the community ball, Mrs. Zach, in different neighborhoods, but they talked about
next to the funeral home.
And next to the funeral home, but they talked about at Carver, how guys just had to get in line. So when you're young, you out there practicing with them, getting beat up, but you're learning and you're growing in the competition that you're playing in. And then when your time comes, you ready to go. You just absolutely ready to go.
But go ahead, B.
So yeah, but so when we talk about the era, I mean, it inspires you to play, right?
Yeah, it did. Because you wanted to play. It was almost a rite to passage on a play. And when you played, you knew you were playing for both neighborhood, school, and community. Because you wanted to represent Delray Beach, because we had our reputation as a community that put out good football teams was pretty much it was known. Because you know, I'll give it to you like this. And when Jackie Sherrill, who at that time was on Johnny Major's staff, he was recruiting at Carver. He was recruiting Lawrence, Barry, and some other guys. But Jackie Sherrill was the chief scout for Johnny Majors. So he came to Delray, and I'm sitting out there, he's watching him hit, and he's got on his blazer, walking in his boots, and these guys look good. I said, yeah, they look good. They great. He said, well, how do you know? I said, well, that's my cousin right there. He said, well, who is that? I said, that's Lawrence Big Daddy Hunt. And that's his brother Donald, Little Daddy Hunt. I said, and the long, tall drink of water that's snatching everything out of the air, that's Barry Hill. That's Barry Hill. If you don't, some of them other schools, I say, because you know, you from the Big 8, I say, but the Big 10 done been here.
Exactly.
I say Brown University trying to recruit Barry right now on academic scholarship. You got to get on your game if you want to get this. I say, but now if you want to really, I say you need to go down to Pompano, and there's a big lineman down there, last name Gillis. There's a boy in Miami named Mike Strong, who's a heck of a running back. Believe it or not, he signed Lawrence, Barry, Big Gill out of Ely, Mike Strong out of Miami, and all those guys went to Iowa State and played for Johnny Majors. And Jackie Sherrill looked like he was a genius.
He was a genius, right?
Okay. In other words, he looked like a genius. You know, but he had our late Bobby Beathard status. Okay, he looked like a little miniature genius.
Right.
You know, because somebody said, why you say it like that? I said, because he got out of Delray and Pompano, he got guys that started and put Iowa State in their first bowl game in the Liberty Bowl that they played in Memphis. And majors, that was the resistance of Iowa State football. Right. And then, of course, Barry held the career interception record. He held Johnny Rodgers, the Heisman Trophy candidate, to 0 catches. 21 career interceptions in the Big 8.
I love it.
0. And so when you look at it, this is what you got. And so all of these guys, and then what happened, after that, Roger Craig's up in Miami, and who's recruiting Miami now? Barry Switzer. So he went to Northwestern. But of course, the first back out of Miami to go to Oklahoma was Elvis Peacock, who later played for the Rams. But Peacock, he went to Oklahoma.
Right. That's right.
So
from Miami, that's right.
Elvis Peacock. When you begin to lay the litany of athletic prowess out of Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County that ended up in the Big 8, Derek Crudup ended up there on suspect because they didn't want a quarterback like him so he ended up as a Sooner playing defensive back because they wanted him not to play, and they told him they were moving him because what was funny was at Florida at the time. Ray and I together. Spencer Jackson, who was also from Delray, was at Florida. That's right. Spencer was a parade All-American in both football, baseball. So Wayne Peace ended up being quarterback. When they put Derek in there at quarterback, they caught it was a totally different offense. But they say, hey, you can't play quarterback. And so, of course, he goes to Oklahoma, and he does what he does. But then you had George Buster Rhymes out of Miami. Then you had an assortment of players, if you look on the Oklahoma roster, that all came out of South Florida.
That's right.
That's right. Go to the Glades, because you go to the Glades, you got 6 state championships, 2006, 7, and 8. Pahokee won three-peat. Glades was a three-peat. That's within 15. Got 6 state titles. Then you go to the San Francisco Ravens Super Bowl game. You got 9 guys out of Palm Beach County playing in that Super Bowl.
That's right.
9.
That's right.
Out of Palm Beach County, not out of Dade or Broward, but out of Palm Beach County. And then
little old Palm Beach
County down. Just think about County. Think about Carlos, right? Who went to John I. Leonard.
Yep.
Went to LSU.
That's right.
Kevin Fagan. Okay. John I. Leonard. A couple of Super Bowls with who? With the 49ers. And then there's Leonard Coleman, who was the first round draft, went to Vanderbilt. And then when you start going, then you got Vincent Wilfork, right? Who comes out of Santa Lucis. Then you got and then when you look at then you got the kid Carlos Ferguson, who went to Santa Lucis, went to Michigan State. Him and my cousin Fred Wilson played up there with George Perlis, and all out of what? And then you got Van Williams, cornerback. You got Johnny Haynes, defensive lineman, Michigan State Spartans. So when you build this thing out, you flesh out all this athletic prowess. You say all that came out of where? Palm Beach County. Delray, Boynton, and you throw in the Glades, because it's all a hop, skip, and a jump. Right. Then you got Hall of Fame Rick Jackson. Then of course you got the late Andre Waters. And on and on. And then in the litany of it, it's like I said, it's not a theory. This is all factual data. So for all of you historians that want to piece it together, it's factual historical data of this kind of athletic prowess. And so don't let nobody go tell you that's a theory. It's a fact. And
I tell you,
were that this.
Well, I tell you, Bernard, one thing is so many of us from Palm Beach County. Every time I have this show, we leave somebody out. Because don't forget about Anquan Bolden. Don't forget about Rabbit. I think Rabbit is still Janoris Jenkins. I think he's still in the league playing right now. From Pahokee. I mean, it's just
Janoris
so many.
Is still in the league.
Yeah, and then let's think about when we go back to Delray. We talk about Carver. We talk about Barry Hill. We talk about Greg Dobson. You know, we haven't even talked about the Cornelius family yet. And we talk about the Flowers. You know, Brandon Flowers had a great pro career with the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Diego Chargers. You know, he's all pro corner, right?
And the Chargers.
And the Chargers, right? And so you got all those guys, man. You got all those guys that play. I think at one time we had about 14 guys in the league from Delray, right?
Yep.
And I didn't know these cats, man. I'm so
David Clowney were at Virginia Tech together.
That's right. Exactly.
You what?
That's right.
You so old.
Hey, I'm so old. I don't know these young cats, man. And so it's hard to keep up, especially when I don't live there, right? And so I just happen to be.
But they all know you.
Well, they know me. It's just like when Barry was playing. You know, everybody knew Barry. I'll never forget this, Bernard. I was a junior in high school. We were playing Dillard in the second round of the playoffs, right? And so, you know, Barry was playing with the Dolphins. And I'm in the game. I'm on defense. And the announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the great Barry Hill is here." Man, when they said Barry was there, man, I turned the dial up. Man, about 2-3 plays later, quarterback threw a ball. I picked it off 165.
Yep.
Barry Hill.
I
had to turn it off, right?
Yeah.
So
it's funny because.
And here's the other thing. Let me say this.
Mr. Bain.
Mr. Leroy Bain.
Yeah. He was there that night. And he said, no. He said, oh yeah. And he said, they didn't hear your name. And because that was not really, you know, his demeanor. He liked being low key. Mr. Bain made the announcer.
Right.
So, you know.
But
and then, of course, a couple of plays later, here you go.
Bam.
Snatching the ball out the air.
And I'm sitting there thinking the whole time.
You got it.
I'm sitting there thinking, Barry saw me do that. Barry saw me do that. Because I'm going to be honest with you, man. He gave me some of the best advice that somebody can give a player when I was coming out of high school, you know, trying to decide what school I wanted to go to. And he never told me where to go. But he did say this to me. Because I'm going to be honest with you, man. I tell people this all the time. This is no joke. If Tank Johnson would have called me and had Penn talk to me, I would have went to Bethune-Cookman. I'm just telling you, I would have gone. If Penn would have said, "Bobby, go on to Cookman, man. They're going to let you play quarterback like that," I would have been gone. Penn? Bruh, I would have been out. So, but to make a long story short.
Your childhood idol told you to come on?
Man, what you saying? I would have been gone. And so, but Barry pulled me aside, and Barry told me this. Because see, and when he said this, I started connecting dots. Because I remember when I saw him playing the Sun Bowl at Iowa State. See, I saw him at Big Daddy playing the Sun Bowl.
Yep.
Right? And I saw him on TV. Yep. And to see him on TV, I can't tell you what that thing did to me, man. To see Barry Hill, one of our heroes from Delray Beach, on national TV, you know, we didn't see that at the time. And so he pulled me aside and he told me, he said, "Look," he said, "if I were you, if you get an opportunity to play on TV, that's what you want to do." And that changed my mind because, you know, I'm going to be honest with you, Bernard, you know my Aunt Vernice.
Was he wrong?
No, he wasn't wrong. But you know my Aunt Vernice and Denise, they tried to put the full court pressure on me. And Mr. Youngblood. Remember Mr. Youngblood lived on Northwest 6?
Oh, boy, the first black city commissioner in Delray?
All three of them came to my house. You know, I ain't going to tell you what the whole conversation was. I'm just telling you straight up. They tried to put the full court press on me, man. And I kept telling them, I said, "No, I'm going to Florida State." "Well, you know that you go over there, they ain't going to play you over there." I'm looking at them like, you might think that, but I'm not thinking that, right? So anyway, it's funny, but Barry Hill was truly, and all those guys, man. You know, I can't even begin to tell you when I was in the 10th grade, when Randy Strong got drafted to play with the Baltimore Colts. So a lot of people don't know Randy Strong got drafted by the Colts.
He played with the Colts.
All right, and so they moved him from linebacker to fullback. He hadn't played fullback since high school.
To play fullback.
Right. And so he hadn't played fullback since high school. And so I'm a young quarterback, and I'm working out with Randy every day at the old Carver High. Bruh, you couldn't, man, let me tell you something.
Yep.
They didn't know. Of course, they had no idea. But I knew in my heart what that meant to me, to be able to work out with these guys. You know, and when Barry would come sometimes and come out there and work out, I worked out with Charles Cornelius. Bruh, can you imagine a little high school kid who got a dream being able to play with the guys he'd been watching as a kid who made it, right? To just work out with those guys. Oh, man. It meant right there. It meant everything to me. You know, it meant everything to me.
It was unique, Bobby, because they came back. They didn't go to some selective place to practice. They came to Carver. They practiced on that field. And then when it was every afternoon, they pushed themselves. Yes. And when you think of it, when you go back to the likes of Cannonball Butler, they all used to do the same thing. You know, Edward, and my cousin, the late Fred Lee Wilson, were in the same backfield together at Edward Waters. Wow. Here's Cannonball, Edward Waters. Where is Edward Waters? Jacksonville. Look at how long Cannonball stayed in the league.
Hey, listen.
Where? Edward Waters.
Edward Waters. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something about Cannonball. It's amazing. Yeah. And I didn't know this. I found this out. I was in Jacksonville doing a football camp some years ago. And Cannonball had passed, but the athletic director at Edward Waters came by the camp, and we were talking to him about maybe doing something more in the future. And so we go to the campus,
right?
And we go to the gym, and they got Jim Butler's jersey in the gym. And here's what I found out.
Yeah.
At that time, he's the only football player to ever be drafted in the NFL out of Edward Waters.
Out of Edward Waters?
He's the only one.
Where was he from? Boynton Beach, Florida.
Boynton Beach, Florida.
The only one.
That's right. Hey, listen. Let me tell you, he was an all-pro running back. Played with the Steelers. Played with the Falcons. But here's the thing. When we talk about talent coming out of Delray, here's the thing. Cannonball never played running back in high school. A lot of people don't know that.
Nope.
He played tight end. Why? Too much talent.
He was a tight end in high school.
Too much talent in Delray. Yep. So you think about that, man. And so
when he went to Edward Waters, they made him a running back.
They made him a running back because he had juice. He had juice in him, man. And so, and he found his way, right? And it's amazing, man, because I never knew that Cannonball Butler, class of 1960, was a tight end. And of course, you know, and part of the reason now, Bernard, he played on a team with Tippy Jones. A lot of people forgot about Tippy Jones.
Bud Jones.
Yeah. Wilbur,
he's my next door neighbor.
Yes, sir. And so he played with guys like that. Anthony Williams, Benny Colbrooks out of Boynton. Benny Colbrooks was a real deal, man.
Yep.
You know, those guys were great ball players.
See, they were, and they all, Bud, we call Tippy Bud. He lived next to us.
Wow.
You know, he went to Cookman.
He did?
And I remember going to watch them play at old Memorial Stadium when A&M and Cookman played, and Bob Hayes was in his heyday.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
I went to a couple of those games.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Could you imagine sitting in that old stadium watching the Bullet?
The Bullet, the Bullet. That had to be special, man. That had to be special.
It was special.
You know, and it almost like when you think about it, when you think about Bullet being in the game, you couldn't have been fat or nobody. I mean, of course, you can outrun everybody. Just throw him a hitch. Throw it to him on the line. See him make one move, he gone. Right?
Listen. would do a 3-yard out or whatever this simple play was, and the cornerback done gave up. He done backed up 12 to 14 yards, and by the time he decided he done got, and it was, you're right, it was unfair. It was totally unfair.
It was unfair,
because that much speed.
Oh man!
If you blink, you lost it.
Oh, bro.
You know.
Listen, you better have 5 guys there, and maybe you may have a chance. You know, maybe you may have a chance. So, bro. So we talk about Carver High, and one of the things that's impressive is the fact that before we truly integrated, right? We had guys from Delray playing at Carver. You had guys from Boca playing at Carver. Right. You had guys from Boynton playing at Carver. You had guys from Lake Osborne. Lake Osborne. Yeah, playing at Carver.
Yep. Well, they didn't call it Lake Worth. They called it Lake Osborne.
Lake Osborne. That's what I'm saying. Lake Osborne. Right. That's right. Lake Osborne playing at Carver. And so when you think about it, man, that's a lot of talent to have out there. And then on top of that, so when we talk about the end of the 60s, right? When you had Dennis Matthews, Rock, when you had Ronnie Mack, when you had Horace Bush, when you had Big E, when you had the late Simmy Taylor, when you had Temple, when you had all those guys playing at Seacrest that were all supposed to be going to Carver High School. And then you think about the line at Seacrest. It was long too. Wait, I mean, what you do with all that at one time? You know, I think about Dennis Matthews when he was at Seacrest. I mean, he was the leading rusher at Seacrest, and I forgot how many yards he had, but he had a great senior year at Seacrest. So think about it. That's the same year.
Because he went to
right, but that's the same year, Bernard, that Carver had. That Carver had. Now, all right, so listen now. So you got Dennis over there. He's a senior. Ronnie Mack is a junior at the time. Dennis is a senior doing his thing. I'm talking about Dennis tearing it up. Rock tearing it up. But then over at Carver High, across town, you got 3 guys in the backfield. You got Greg Dawson, the GOAT. You got Abraham Wooten.
Yep.
And you got Pop Grover.
Wooten.
And so then you got Pop Grover. You got those 3 guys. You got those 3 guys. And then you got Dennis over there. Man, if those guys would be on the same team, where was they going to play? It was just too many.
Who was going to get the ball? And then you had Lester Flowers, Gopher playing flanker.
Gopher playing flanker that year.
Who was going to get the ball?
Who was going to get the ball? You had Gopher playing flanker that year. You had Bobby Brown playing receiver, right? You had Alfonso Wilson playing receiver.
Yeah.
You had
Alfonso.
Hold on a second. You had what's his name? Good God. It was one more. Come to me now.
William Plummer, or had he gone?
No. Billy was playing that year in 6-8. We talking about 6-8 now. So Billy was out there, and Billy was the main threat.
Yep.
But you had Alfonso Blocker. So you think about all that. You got Alfonso
Blocker.
Funyun,
we used to call him. He had Alfonso Blocker.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You had him.
Alfonso Wilson.
Bobby Brown, Alfonso Wilson, Gopher playing wide receiver. And I don't even know if Barry played wide receiver that year.
You had all them guys.
You had all them guys, man. And then you go to the
didn't put him at wide receiver until the following year because he played safety.
He played safety. So then you go to the senior year, you go to the next year, and they move Gopher from wide receiver to the backfield. Right? So him and Randy Strong. Randy Strong was playing fullback, and Gopher was a tailback that last year at Carver.
Randy was playing fullback.
And then Barry was snatching everything out the air, bro. Snatching everything out the air.
Yep.
You know, and it was just a phenomenal team.
If it went by, it got caught.
Hey, man, I'm just telling you. And, you know, when you had all that, and then you had Lawrence Hunt, Big Daddy Hunt, you had Donald Hunt. I mean, you had all those guys, man. Randy's still playing the middle of the defense, leading the defense. Man, that's a lot of power. That's a lot of stuff right there, man. That's a lot of stuff right there.
That's a lot. That's a lot of talent on one team.
That's a lot. That's a lot of talent.
And then you go across town and you got just as much.
Hey, listen, we was on the show one night talking, and so I had Doug Parker, I had Dog Blue, I had Butterbean. Who else I had? Bubba Brown was supposed to be on, but he couldn't make it. They think it was his mother's birthday or somebody's birthday that night. He couldn't make it. And they talked about the City Boys. They call themselves the City Boys. They grew up on Southwest 6th Avenue, right there by Zach Funeral Home, right there. You know, the Parker family right there. Right. Dog Blue lived across the street. Harsh Bush lived right there. All of them lived in the same neighborhood. And they talked about, and they were lifting weights when nobody else was lifting weights. So they were physical. Those guys were always physical ball players that played on Southwest 6th Avenue, right? And so then I said, well, y'all play Jefferson Manor? Oh, we wiped down. What about Carver Park? You see, Carver Park, that real neighborhood. Carver Park, bro, that Carver Park. Some ball players come out of Carver Park, man. So, but yeah, man. So you know, we talk, but that's, and Delray's a little town, so we all live in the same neighborhood, right?
Same
and so,
neighborhood.
Because when you go on the north side, you know, Greg Dawson them lived on Northwest, what's that, 11th? Northwest 11th Avenue. Johnny Haynes lived on Northwest Avenue.
They lived on 11th.
They lived on 11th, and then when you get over there, Pop Grover, Penn, all of them live in the same. Eric Davis and Cho and all of them live right by each other. Curtis Williams, Van
right there, Jefferson Manors.
Van Williams, Preston Williams, they all lived out there. Scatter Red, all of them lived out there. Great ball players over there too. Great ball players. And then you go
all live within what 4 or 5 houses of each other.
4 or 5
and
houses.
They all played in that open field over there.
Bro, that's a
Scatter Red.
Bro, that's a lot. Scatter Red in Atlanta.
It's a lot of talent.
Man, that's a lot of talent, man. And so, and as we think about it, man, we can go. I mean, bro, when I think about my era, you know, what we had at Atlantic, right? And then the guys who played at Boca, you talk about the Parker family, you talk about Doug, Bernard, Thad, Mike Parker, you talk about all of them, you talk about Fred Gaines, Alvin Price, Toot Mitchell. I mean, you know, and man, you can go on and on and on. The talent that they had.
And guess what?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what was interesting was you had Roger Coffey coaching Mark Ritt when he was the quarterback, and Mark Ritt was staying with Coffey for a period of time. And every time when Rick was head coach at Georgia, Roger Coffey spoke at many of his symposiums.
Many of them.
And when he talks today, he talks about what it was that Coach Coffey did in high school, and he never did that. But he also talked about having to compete with the guys out here when he was in aid with Coffey. He said, and that changed his game.
Well, you think about who he had behind him.
That changed his game.
Think about who Mark Rick had behind him at Boca High at quarterback. I'm gonna name 2. Right behind him, he had Tom Smith. They call him Boot. You know, Boot played at a high level.
With the Memphis State.
Hey, listen, my senior year, we played Memphis State. Listen, we played Memphis State at Memphis. And that whole week, I'm looking at the game plan, I'm looking at the personnel, and there go Tom Smith, the starting quarterback. I'm getting ready to play against my homeboy from Memphis State. And you know, I was a little bit jealous too, because he was playing under the center. Bro, he was their quarterback. He was their quarterback. And I got a chance to play against him in college.
You know, I saw Boot about 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, he stayed in. You know, he retired from Memphis PD.
Yeah, he's still there.
When I spoke to him, when he came home for his father's funeral, I spoke with him at length. It was George Smith, who went to play with Archie Cooley out in Mississippi Valley and then followed him to Arkansas. They're all first cousins.
Wow.
And
crazy.
when his dad died, Boot, because we used to ride horses together all the time out at the farm. But he was telling me, but Boot was a heck of an athlete, heck of a quarterback.
So listen, so Mark Rick had Boot right behind him. And then guess who was right behind Boot? Boss Man. So, at Boca High, they had talent. Now, Mark Rick took that team farther than anybody under Coach Coffey. Because Mark Rick and Dog Blue almost got to the championship game in quad A football. Because I was like, my senior year, I was an all-area quarterback. And then the next year, Mark Rick was an all-area quarterback.
Yep.
And because Mark Rick spent so much time with Coach Coffey, I knew Mark Rick when he was in high school because I lived at the Coffey's house. You know, me and Larry like that, right? We brothers. We don't go nowhere.
You and Larry just like that.
Me and Larry just like that. And so I can't tell you how many days or hours the time I spent at the Coffey's house. Because when they were living on 13th during the Carver High days, I lived on 12th, right behind them, right? And so I spent a lot of time. I ate a lot of their food. So I spent a lot of time in their home, man. And so I got a chance to see all those great high school players.
Well, but come
to the door.
But when you think about it, that's how we grew up.
That's how we grew up, man.
You know, we spent a lot of time with our friends, and we had those kinds of relationships.
Right.
One of the things that I tell my kids today is that y'all don't get to have those kinds of relationships.
Right. Exactly.
You know, think about it.
It's different now.
Well, he's at the car over there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, no problem.
Your parents knew them, and they knew y'all.
Right. Well, I wasn't allowed.
And there was that kind of community.
Right. I mean, it was a different day. It was a different day.
You wasn't allowed to go hang out like a lot of kids.
I mean, I couldn't hang out, but I can go to the coffee. I can go to the coffee house, and I can go there. Yep, I can go there, but I couldn't go nowhere else.
And if you went your father,
remember now, Bernard, I lived on Southwest 12th Avenue in a duplex, and the duplex north of me, Jughead lived in that duplex. So I wasn't allowed.
Winky.
My daddy didn't allow me to be out on that street. Right? I was not allowed, but I can go to the coffee's house. And so that's why I leave it at that. That's what. That's why I go to coffee.
Okay, house. and you coffee state. You stayed on Southwest 12. We all stayed on Southwest 14. And it was just a cut through the alley to go to the coffee.
If I can go to coffee house, and if I can cut through to Josie's house, I probably can end up right in front of your house. Right?
You're in front of our house.
Right. I'll be right there in front of your house. But here's the amazing thing about you guys too, right? So
right between my house and Donald Monroe's house.
So I talk about Carver. I talk about Carver, right? The Carver community, right?
Right.
Carver Park, right? So Carver Park really starts, tell me if I'm wrong now, on 3rd Street South, right? Right. So I call the suburbs of Carver Park. You got the Temple family. You got the Temple family live right there, right? Larry and Leroy. All right. Yep. Then you got the Burgess family. Leroy. You got Gus and Jerome live right
next door to them.
Right. Then you have David Richards. David Richards live down there. Then you got the Monroe family. Then you got the Mitchell family.
You got Big Dave.
Then you got Chuck Jones. Bruh, come on now. Bruh, come on, man.
Then when you go up the street, you got Anthony Grisby, Pete Grisby, and Anthony went to Cookman, and Vince Lombardi drafted him to play for the Washington Redskins.
Bruh, that's what
all in one street.
All in one street right there. Neighbors. So I tell people, y'all,
what we call it.
I know y'all got good players.
That was the neighborhood.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then we're going to Carver Park, man. We talk about Mutt Lee. Man. We talk about Norris Lee. We talk about Isaac Ford. We talk about Toe Francis. All right, we talk about all them. We talk, and then we go around that corner. We talk about Mo West and P-Row, his brother P-Row. We talk about the Heat. Right. We talk about the Heat family, Bobby Heat, Ross Heat, all them. And then we talk about the Cornelius family. And we can go on. We can go on for a while with Robert, Juan, Charles, Steve Cornelius, Tim Cornelius, Alfonso Cornelius,
Timmy,
Tony Cornelius. Bruh, we'll and listen, we can talk about that for days. And then across the street, we got Luther Mosley. See, a lot of people forget. And then we go around the corner.
And then you know what? All that's in. You go around the corner, guess what you got?
You got Boot.
You got Ronald Mack stayed over there on the other street.
You got
you got Simi sitting right there on Third Street.
On the corner, right? Exactly. Got Simi right there, right? And you got Alex Sankfield over there. You got Willie Jack Bernard over there. Man, come on, man. You got Jimmy Sankfield.
You got Jack. And then you got all these guys played, but they were also phenomenal baseball players. That's right.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
Jerome Burgess was probably the best catcher in South Florida.
South Florida. That's
right. And then, I will give it to you this way. Charles Cornelius played with me as a senior. Mm-hmm. Charles didn't go to anybody's school his freshman year. He went out to Texas College.
Mm-hmm.
The following year, he came from Texas College and was a walk-on at Bethune-Cookman.
Wow.
And got, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Because him, Bruce, and a bunch of kids went out to Texas, and Charles, next thing you know, when it's going on, he's playing. And guess what? And started every year he was there.
Wow.
So,
now did you have?
We grew up in a.
Bernard, I want you to talk about this one guy that he was a great ball player. We don't talk about him much because he passed a long time ago. Tell me about Arnold Robinson, Big Red.
Baby Red, we called him. He played center with me in Atlantic. Mm-hmm. Arnold went to Bethune, where he's a linebacker in college football.
Mm-hmm.
Arnold went to the Buffalo Bills camp.
Right.
Arnold's mom passed. Arnold came home and never went back. Went to Daytona.
Mm-hmm.
Arnold died well over 10 years ago.
Yes.
Had a diabetic coma, came out.
Wow.
But he was a gentle giant until the whistle blew.
Yes, sir.
But
yes, sir.
You couldn't ask for a person with a kinder heart. But he played a mean lead guitar too. Okay.
Did he really?
Played a mean lead guitar and had yes, sir, and had a great tenor voice. He was a self-taught lead guitar player.
Come on, man.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
If he heard it, he could play it. He had a
what?
Yes, sir. We were in the choir together at Atlantic High School. Arnold brought in his guitar.
Come on, man.
Every song we play. Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Arnold Robinson played a mean lead guitar.
Arnold was a big guy.
And he had a voice he could scale.
Really?
He was big. And he plays in the shot put and the discus after 1 year because Randy Cooper coached him on how to throw the shot in the discus at Atlantic. Wow. He had never thrown it before. Cooper coached him.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Arnold was a great player.
To the state and the regionals throwing the shot in the discus.
Wow.
He was. That's almost like when people look at it. But he was a gentle giant till the whistle blew.
Yeah.
When that whistle cranked up, he transformed for them cities. He'd knock you down real hard and say, "Let me help you up, but don't get in my way now."
He did. Tell me if I'm wrong. As a 10th grader, he played at Carver High. He was on the field, wasn't
he? He played at Carver High School. Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the young guys. Because I think
Arnold played
on the 68 or 69 team. I know Charles Cornelius. I got a picture. My favorite picture I got.
Charles played on that team.
Charles was on that team. Yep. Because Charles is in that picture.
Charles.
And, he was a young fella in that picture
Arnold.
with Greg Dobson and all those guys.
Yeah. All of them.
Hey, look, Bernard, man, listen. I tell you what you and I gotta do.
You
and I gotta do this again. Our time is up. But you and I, maybe again at the end of the month, we haven't even got into the things that we need to get into. So let's put it on air. If you got time, the end of the month.
We did.
The 27th.
You put the date together, and I'll put it on my calendar.
We'll do it again.
We'll close out February with the rendition of.
Let's do that.
So we'll do that Black History piece you want to do.
Let's do that Black History piece. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for the night.
I will something.
That's our show for the night, ladies and gentlemen. So
I hope y'all enjoyed these 100 yards of football.
Comment and share it with your friends. I'm your host, our legend segment, Bobby Butler, and we had the great Bernard Mitchell with us tonight. Bernard, we'll see you in a couple weeks, bro.